It's just hard to get.
Thank you all. And for someone that asked a question about recording, we are recording this and we will be sharing it out afterwards. This will also be posted on our website and YouTube channel. So you are more than welcome to share this internally with your fellow peers, coworkers, as well, and distribute that internally. And then if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at or chanteliberato@diversityanddesign.com. So I am going to get started, just to be respectful of all of you who did join us at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're obviously here to talk about another DID network program. So for those of you who are familiar with that, we do these at least once a quarter to talk about different topics that interest you. So after this call, if there is a topic that you would like for us to discuss at a later program, please let me know. I definitely take suggestions. Most of you are on our DID Network Slack channel or our DID membership Slack channel. So you can always communicate there and or reach out to me personally to share any suggestions. So today we're here to talk about best practices for hiring and retaining Black creatives. And before we get started and introduce our dynamic panelists, I do want to thank all of you for your time, for your dedication, for being here and being present, and for your passion for this work as well as this topic, and overall for supporting DID and our mission. We really do appreciate you all taking the time, sharing your inputs with us, and continuously engaging with us in a number of different ways. So thank you. So today we'll have a approximately 30-minute formal discussion with our panelists. And then just a reminder, this is a safe space with your fellow peers across the design industry. So we definitely want to give you the opportunity to ask questions and engage amongst each other, as well as with our panelists. And I welcome you all to connect with our panelists via LinkedIn as well, if you want to continue this conversation outside of this forum. So if you have ever attended one of our information sessions or any of our meetings, we always talk about the situation. And the situation is that less than 5% of professional designers identify as Black. So for those of you who are hearing that for the first time, less than 5% of professional designers identify as Black. And the experience of many Black creatives within the workplace is that they are often the only person of color, still to this date, in a room, team, department, or even on occasion within the entire organization. Organizations such as yours, such as corporations, agencies, or brands, must not only hire diverse talent in their creative and leadership teams, but also—
You want one hash brown or two?
Oh, sorry, Jamila, I'm going to mute you. You must not only hire diverse talent in your creative and leadership teams, but also make change internally with your policies to cultivate BIPOC employees and help them flourish professionally. So during discussion, as I mentioned, we're going to touch on a few topic areas such as hiring practices, workforce relationships, interviews and portfolios, and supportive measures that you can adopt within your organizations to not only hire, but also retain Black talent. So with that, I am going to introduce our panelists, and I will love to welcome Kelly Weldon from Adobe.
Should I do a quick intro? Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly. I'm a senior experience designer at Adobe, and I work mostly on Creative Cloud. I'm based in Detroit, but I'm from California. I attended Art Center College of Design. So I've been a designer for almost 10 years now. Yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
I'm going to kick it over to Oneita.
Hi, my name is Oneita Porter. I am the External Partnerships Lead for General Motors Design. And my background is within design, fine art. I was a color materials finishes CMF designer here at GM, as well as our lighting design lead before that. I am not an HR professional as my background. So, but I am in this role now that sort of straddles both sides of creative design and HR. Nice to be here.
And Spencer.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick disclaimer. I am fighting for my life against a cold. So if my voice goes out, please be patient with me. I am Spencer Stultz. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I currently work as the Senior Team Operations Program Manager for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion with Adobe Design. Similar background where I do not work in HR, but my positionality is interesting where I work as a dotted line to our global DE&I team, which is situated within our employee experience or HR. My background includes history, visual art, African-American studies. I attended school on the East Coast, and I currently am living on land that was originally stewarded by the Miami and Kaskaskia and Hopewell people, presently understood as Columbus, Ohio, and very excited to chat with you all today.
Thank you. Thank you for your introductions. All right, so let's get into it. So let's talk a little bit about hiring practices. So we all know in the recent years, unfortunately, due to the murder of George Floyd, many organizations have reviewed their internal hiring practices, not only for internships, senior and entry-level positions, in order to remove barriers to entry. So Oneita, can you share with us different ways in which General Motors has improved these practices to be a little bit more equitable? And what are some of the best recruiting practices that you may be aware of that may also be untraditional?
Sure. So overall, the organization has developed many ways to get into GM. We are, as an organization, removing barriers that were previously there for, with regard to a degree to apply for jobs. But within design, we're specifically working with a local community college for a sculpting co-op program where our students work full-time at GM. They go to school at night, and it's paid for by GM. And at the end of that, they get an automotive sculpting certificate where they automatically have a job within GM. They're getting paid at the same rate that our other sculptors are being paid, and getting paid for their schooling is paid for as well. We also have, like many organizations, we have employee resource groups. So we focus on improvement by way of those, as well as, different programs that we have within design.
That's great. And those were high school students?
No, those are college students for the sculpting program, but we do work with high school students as well. We have the You Make a Difference program, which is a high school program. It's kicking off our second cohort, or no, I'm sorry, that one's been going on for years. The sculpting program just kicked off the second cohort. We're kicking off YMAD, I think it's the 16th year, which is the high school program, in January. We already had the initial introductory meeting, but the beginning of January, that one kicks off, and that teaches high school students about positions that are available within design and ways to get in there and how to improve their portfolios, presentation skills, everything. It really gives them a well-balanced look at what the different disciplines are within design.
Awesome. That's great. And I'm going to pivot to Kelly. I know, Kelly, you just joined Adobe and you've been with them for a little bit over a year. I would love to learn a little bit more about your experience as a job seeker and some of the hiring practices that you experience. And also, if you can share for those who are on the call that may be entering the design industry or are seeking to be promoted, what did you felt like it took in order to land this role within Adobe?
Yeah, so I graduated from Art Center College of Design in 2016 from the interaction design program. And something that I was lucky to have at Art Center was one of the benefits of attending that school is that you get to create a network with different employers. One of those happened to be Adobe. I got to work with Ford. So they kind of help you network and create a name for yourself within these different companies. And then there's a grad show where you present your work with an industry night where people can come with the intention to hire. So I did get a job from that industry night at a very small Chinese-based design agency. It was like a branding and marketing, digital marketing agency. But I felt inadequate because a lot of my peers were being hired by Apple, Google, Facebook. And at the time, I felt my experience level was equal to if not higher than a lot of theirs, especially coming into the program. I was able to skip 2 terms. So I had more experience, I had work experience, but I wasn't landing those big jobs. So I really had a couple of years of self-doubt and thinking to myself, I made a big bet on going to a private art school so that I could have this network to land this big job. And that wasn't happening right after graduation. So I decided to commit to the job that I did receive, and I was really grateful for that. And I chose to spend my time both developing my portfolio through that job and through working with friends, small startups, little individual projects. And because I chose to add to my portfolio and continue to grow my skills, I think that opened more doors for me. But I think I landed the job at Adobe because I landed a job at Pivotal Labs. And that was interesting because I was from LA. I applied to that job, which was in Detroit, and the pool of designers in Detroit is a lot different than the pool of designers in LA. So I feel like because of that difference, my portfolio and resume probably stood out in this environment, as well as this being a majority Black city. I felt like I had a better opportunity to get an interview in general. So once I started working at Pivotal, my experience and my skill set sort of spoke for itself, and I was able to grow myself, have that on my resume. And then so when I applied for the job at Adobe, I didn't need a network because finally my experience spoke for itself because Pivotal Labs decided to give me a chance to show that. So it was definitely a really complex job market to enter. And there were a lot of feelings going on right after graduating. I think ultimately I landed in the best place. Definitely a dream job for me.
That's awesome. I'm sure Spencer is happy to hear that. And you mentioned portfolios and interviews, so I'm gonna rearrange my order here and go right into that in just a moment. But before that, Spencer, anything you want to add in terms of what Adobe is doing recently to make their hiring practices more equitable?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, Kelly, I was very happy to hear that this is one of your dream jobs. Love that for you and for us. Some of what Adobe has been doing. So one thing I love about Adobe and Adobe Design specifically is the way that they were doing a lot of pretty good work before the murder of George Floyd and before this, this racial kind of evolution that we're seeing in society right now. And so with that being said, one thing that Adobe has done is taken a look at programs that they've been doing that has worked well and have invested more in them, while they also simultaneously look at ways they can offer new programming. And so some of that includes scholarships that we offer for students who attend historically Black colleges and universities who are studying design, which is amazing. I'm pretty sure it's at least $10,000, which, can make a significant impact and make or break whether you can attend school. We also have a really cool program called the Digital Academy, and that is something that I love. It is basically a way to enter into the design field, and you can intern with Adobe Design, and you're matched with kind of like a mentor or supervisor. And this is geared specifically to people who aren't in college. We also have another internship program, but it's for people who might be career switchers, for folks who have had experience working in corporate or nonprofit field, but are kind of segueing into design, right? And that's where Adobe Design noticed there's a huge gap. There's not a lot of areas for entry for that specific age group and demographic. And so the Digital Academy is a way that I think we're able to make a real difference in people's lives. what else do we do? Another thing that I think is lovely is how we have been developing, and it's still an ongoing development, a database for people who we have possibly interviewed or have been recommended, who have untraditional backgrounds that might not fit your cookie cutter design, background, or who have marginalized identities. And when we are hiring for positions, that's a way we can reach out and kind of connect with people who may not know that Adobe is hiring, or, we know has a certain skill set that we value, and we can kind of make sure we're being intentional about how we're hiring and who we're hiring that way. Those are some things that we have done and that are more concrete. There's a lot of other things. I just started 6 months ago. So there's a lot of programs in development that is still in process. But those are things that really speak to me that are making tangible differences.
That's awesome. And Spencer, the Digital Academy, where can we learn more about that? Is that on the adobe.com website or?
Absolutely. That should be on the adobe.com website. But while you're asking someone else a question, I will find a link and try to throw it in the chat.
Awesome. And for those of you in the call, if you know anyone who may be interested, feel free to forward that link to them so they can join that academy. Perfect. Well, a few final questions about hiring practices, more so in regards to digital systems or platforms that we use to hire. And we all know that some of them use different algorithms that can or cannot be biased. So definitely want to hear from you on how you're working around some of those platforms, and also how are you making sure that you are working with systems or digital platforms that do not have biased algorithms when you are receiving that pool of applicants. And Oneita, I'll lean on you.
So our system is not one that's built on algorithms to, set up for that type of bias. We do a behavioral interview system. So the STAR method, some of you may have heard about: a situation, task, action, result. So it's basically like, tell me about a time when this happened or that, and how you dealt with that. And that gets to know, more of the person than it does through like just their portfolio or just their resume. It gets a little bit more into who the person is, as opposed to just the other side of things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm very familiar with STAR method. If you are not familiar with it, a lot of different, across many different industries, use that methodology as well. So thanks so much for sharing. Sure. Kelly and Spencer, tell me a little bit about the importance of hiring for potential versus skill.
Yeah, I think that's something that I can speak to, and something that we've been talking about on my team more recently. My team in particular is designing for a very complex system. So Creative Cloud, what I work on is file management. So that touches every single legacy application, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, the web applications, Creative Cloud Home, our new apps like Adobe Express. So everything that I work on has to work for all of those users and all of those systems, which is a pretty big job for someone who has a lower experience level, but that doesn't mean that they can't bring value to our team. So one of the things that we do before interviewing is we prep for potential and not necessarily skill level, because something that our directors usually preface us with is this person might not be a good fit for this team at this experience level, but they could be a fit for somewhere within Adobe. So does this person match what our sort of like morals and values as a team and the way that we work? Are they showing an eagerness to learn? Are they responding to feedback when we're doing these design exercises? So it's more about the person. Of course, their portfolio matters, but it's not the end all be all when we're deciding on who to hire. So more recently, we've hired 2 or 3 junior designers who we sort of disperse throughout the org, and their ramp up time takes longer, but we're committing to helping them to become better designers so that we can retain them for a long time, because we see that potential and that talent within them.
That's amazing. Spencer, anything to add?
I think the main thing that I would add, well, full disclosure, I am not a talent partner. And so I partner with the talent partners, but I do know we are looking at ways to create an inclusive hiring toolkit, which is something that both talent partners and also hiring managers will be able to follow. It has step-by-step guide. It's incredibly dense and amazing. There's a brilliant talent partner named Gary Davis who is doing amazing work with it. And one thing that I admire about it is that throughout every step of the hiring process, it has this kind of checks and balances system that asks questions that can eliminate bias, that can focus on who the person is, how they work, as well as what they offer and what is included in, let's say, their portfolio, to really just look at a human holistically. That's something that we're working to pilot in the next year, ideally, but that's something that is developing that I think is incredibly exciting and can change the landscape for Adobe's hiring practices.
That's great. Love a good toolkit. All right, so we're going to jump to interviews and portfolios. So we obviously know a part of the hiring process is obviously to get an interview and typically to have a portfolio review. What advice would you give someone that, one, doesn't interview well, but more so, what advice would you give to that recruiter, HR, or hiring manager that sees potential in a candidate, but that candidate didn't interview well throughout that 1 hour, 45-minute engagement?
So I'll go. I love this question too, because I don't know that I necessarily my portfolio doesn't equal me totally. I've had a varied history as far as my career goes, with a number of different industries and just different roles within different industries. But I would say, first of all, practice, of course, the typical feedback that you get: practice, find somebody who knows the industry, even if they don't, just like have them fire questions at you and everything. But like I was saying before, we do the behavioral based interview. So you're the expert on you. You know you better than anyone else. So just be yourself, talk your way through some of it, kind of like I'm doing right now. And just let you shine through. And then, yeah, do your interview questions, practice, work your way through it. And of course, if you have something that comes up afterwards, feel free to reach out afterwards as well, and let them, let those questions soak in a little bit, and then come back and talk to them later again.
Great.
We also do portfolio reviews within the schools, which I think is something that, if that opportunity is available to you, take advantage of it. Where we have a number of our designers who go to the different art schools and will sit with you for 10, 15 minutes each. We usually have, it depends on how many participants we have in one of those events, but just use that time with those professionals that are already there and understand what it is the industry is looking for, or that specific company is looking for. Do your research on that company too, and then just take advantage of those opportunities that are available.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's more than one chance, right? So whenever you can get in, get in.
Yeah.
Kelly, Spencer, anything to add about more so that hiring manager interacts, that interview, but all the potential in the world?
Yeah, I think in interviewing, a lot of people get nervous. I get nervous sometimes speaking in public forums, and that nervousness, I think creative people are pretty empathetic. So we're not going to hold your nervousness against you. There are big things at stake. You're trying to secure a livelihood for yourself. So it makes a lot of sense to be nervous. One thing I like that Adobe does is we sort of do a panel throughout the day. So you'll meet the team. Usually you'll meet with the boss first, just have a really casual conversation. You'll do a portfolio review with the whole team. Maybe that's 4 or 5 people. And then you'll have smaller individual conversations where we can just ask you questions and see how you would respond to different challenges, and just try to get to know you as a person. And I think that throughout those conversations, when you're speaking to the same people a couple of times, you become more and more comfortable. So in that way, it's like you're practicing within the same day. You're getting to know people so that you feel less judged. And so I think that's nice. Hopefully, I think a lot of design jobs, there are usually multiple steps, and you'll usually at least do 2 different conversations. So you have a little bit of time to loosen up, but of course it's always good to go through your portfolio and get your kind of talk track down, or even just an outline, just to make you feel more comfortable in those conversations.
I love the common theme here about that human element, right? Behavioral based, human centric, very important in that interview process. And, you know, something that it seems like GM and Adobe keep top of mind throughout their entire hiring practice. So thank you for that. Now portfolios, we've mentioned it a few times. How important are they? And also, what about if a candidate just lacks experience? You know, when we're talking about our Black youth or a Black creative that's entering the workforce or within that workforce, they need that experience in order to beef up that portfolio, right? So how do you manage that? And how do you engage with that candidate that has the potential, may lack the experience and skill?
Well, currently we do a number of programs, sponsor projects that we're working with different schools that offers those students an opportunity to work on a directed project and have mentors that are within our company to help you out. We're just wrapping up one. That's what Chantel and I were talking about at the very beginning of this. And, you know, the students get to use that in their portfolios. As far as what you should include, you know, have a couple of people take a look at your portfolio, even if they're outside of the industry, so that they can understand, sometimes they can understand, not even being in that industry, they can understand what is lacking or whatever the message is that you're trying to get across. They can see if something just doesn't compute. But I would say one of the biggest problems that I see when we go for portfolio reviews is that we want to see your early work. We want to see, you know, your, we call them dirty sketches, so that we can understand not just your pretty images that you have at the end. We want to see those too, but we like to see like that linear progression from what you started with as an idea and how you develop that through to this gorgeous image at the end, the glamour shot. It's really important for us to see your thought process on that, and then we can understand like where your weakness is and where we can help you, and how we can get you to the point where even if we don't hire, you know, we can understand where we can help you improve your portfolio.
That's great. Spencer, anything to add?
Yes, so I have yet to be in any portfolio reviews with Adobe specifically, but one thing that I can speak to with our hiring process is the way we look at candidates. And I hate to beat a dead horse, but really what we do is we look at the person holistically. Aside from the programs that we have and the collegiate internships that we offer in Digital Academy, which gives people an opportunity to develop their portfolio, a lot of what I've noticed that Adobe looks at is, okay, what skills do you actually need and what to start, and what skills can you learn as you go? And we talk a lot about Adobe capabilities. And one thing I value about this company is the way that, again, we center humanity. And as long as, I'm not saying you just can't have no portfolio at all, but that's not the only thing that we look at with interviewing. Like Kelly said, it's how this person might be able to work with people and alongside people. It's what their values are, because Adobe is a value-driven company. Those are things we look at as well while we're offering opportunities for folks to expand and develop their portfolio.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Anita, you mentioned something, it's escaped my mind just momentarily, but I'm sure I'll mention it before we end this discussion. So going into supporting Black creatives at work. So obviously having supportive resources is critical to ensure the overall success of a Black creative. or Black talent at work. And these supportive measures should be supplemental to their professional and career development growth, right? And we obviously know that these supportive resources are also contribute to our retention numbers for those that are in HR. And obviously, we want to make sure that we're not only obtaining Black creatives, but retaining them long-term and ensuring that they have a career growth and trajectory internally. Oneita or Spencer, if you can share with us how you are supporting your Black creatives once they're already hired.
Sure. So a lot of what we're doing at Adobe and what is kind of my focus for 2023 is developing retention programs and plans. That's something that Adobe does pretty well. No organization is perfect, but that's something that is on the top of my mind for 2023. Aside from, having employee resource groups that, have a budget and also are just supported and kind of backed by leadership. I've been kind of tasked with figuring that out for Adobe. So that is something that even with a absolutely wonderful company like Adobe, that we're still looking to revamp, to be fully transparent and to make better, is how we can retain our Black creatives and talent. One advice that I would give, and something that I've started to do, is to not overcomplicate this process. I think it's as simple as talking to Black creatives, listening to what they communicate that they need, and then doing the work to make that happen. I wish I could give everyone like a clear, this is what you do, this is how you do it template, but that's not the reality, because every company is so different. And so some advice that I would share, because I'm quite sure that everyone on this call is interested in doing this work, is listen to Black creatives when they tell you that they need something and make sure that it happens. And that's how I approach it. And when you center these voices that are marginalized, what you find is you have better support for your Black creatives, which leads to better retention, but also it tends to have a ripple effect throughout your company and your organization, where other folks who may not identify as Black are also reaping some benefits or having new processes developed to also be heard and supported in the ways they need to too. So just to summarize, I'm still working on that. And we do have a lot of programs that are existing, but if that's something that you're looking to do, just listen to Black folk.
I love it. That's simple. You mentioned that your employee resource groups may potentially have a budget. Did I hear that correctly? And if so, can you share maybe one or two examples on how that budget would be utilized?
Yeah, so I can tell you what I've seen since I've been at Adobe. So sometimes it is used for like meet and greets in the offices. We've kind of adopted this very relaxed hybrid working model in the latter part of the year. And so I'm fully remote. The closest office to me is, I think, New York City, and I'm in Ohio. But it is included for like to bring in speakers, if that is possible, or just what the employee group wants. It also includes having like meetups for like in the office for food and support. So a lot of it is just community building and everything that kind of surrounds that. A lot of it's mostly speaker support and food and coffee. So that's the bulk of it.
Beats, bites, and backgrounds for those of you who are there. Oneita, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to say, and I think that's great, Spencer, to admit that it's what you're working on. Nothing is perfect. Everybody's trying to figure out what the best way is to handle how to advance Black people in the right positions and everything. If we had all the answers, we wouldn't have the issues that we currently have. So thank you for being candid in that. But I would say that at GM, we have ERGs as well. We have mentoring programs. I actually run our mentoring program within design, where we partner with our ERGs as well as our leadership team. And we have almost as many mentors that are executive level that are in our program for design as we do mentees. And I personally am in our GMAN, which is General Motors African American Ancestry Network. I'm in the mentoring program there as a mentee, as well as GM Women. And I'm in the GM Design one. And through GMAN, I was partnered with our executive director in design and have gotten to know people from across the organization as well as within design. And it's just, you know, that part of like being heard, being seen, and the representation that there are other people within the company that are going through what you're going through, or that you can tap for advice and things like that on a more casual level, as opposed to the mentorship program that's through our workday. That's the formal HR mentor that you're given, or you have the opportunity and access to. It's a more informal type thing where it's like you really can say, look, I'm having a rough time. What can I do? You know, can I just bounce this off you? Maybe I'm missing something. And I think that too goes back to when we're talking about interviewing or portfolios, or just like getting a second sense of if you're in the right spot, if you're doing the right thing. It's like, you know, a sympathetic ear when you need it.
Yeah, and like both of you said, listen to Black folk, as simple as Spencer said it, but also follow through, because your Black talent, they're watching, they're listening, they're waiting patiently, maybe some more patient than others. But that follow up, that follow through, even if you just have to say, I need another week or I need another month to get this through leadership or XYZ, just don't leave them hanging, in other words, right?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would also just keep an eye out for like anybody else that you see that is struggling. I personally reached out to a girl who I know. She's not a complete stranger, but she's kind of a stranger to me. And it just looked like she was having a hard time. And it's like, hey, you know, just knowing that somebody else is there. I'm like, look, I've gone through some of the struggles with being here, and you know, you need a help or you need a hand or something, you need somebody to talk to, just, I'm here.
Yeah, that human element, right? Human piece.
Right.
Kelly, you're the Black creative. What's working? What's not working? Tell us.
Yeah, I can talk about some of the ways that I felt supported, and then some of the things that I'd like to see. Some of the ways that I felt supported at Adobe specifically are like being a part of the Black employee network, where we have conversations with each other. It's just like being with a group of people who look and feel like you, and that you can have open conversations with. Every time I join a meeting and there's a new Black creative in the meeting that I haven't met, either they send me a message or I send them a message just to say, hey, I'm here. It's like nice to see your face. That's support. A big thing for me was at Adobe Max, which is our yearly conference, my coworker Bria, who's a Black creative, was hosting with Kevin Hart and asking him questions on the stage, just to see that they would elevate her in that way. She's a design program manager, and that they saw her potential to do something like that and elevated her to that stage. And that, you know, a few of the keynote speakers were Black. It's just like such a diverse stage. And that makes me feel optimistic. It makes me feel like I could do the same thing. So in that vein, I'd love to see more Black creatives in design leadership roles. That's something I haven't experienced in any of the jobs that I've worked at. So that would make me feel even more excited about the potential. Right now, I feel like I'm supported in the way that I've been sort of placed on a leadership track. And so all like VPs of design and design directors are helping me figure out, you know, what steps I can take to get to those leadership roles. So I love feeling that support as well. So I think they're on the right track there. And then lastly, just not straying away from difficult conversations in public forums. And I think that's really, really valuable.
Thank you. Well, we do have one more section, but we don't have enough time for that because this conversation was dynamic and amazing. So I want to leave the remainder of the time open for Q&A. And I want to thank our dynamic panelists, all women of color. Very proud of that. For joining us and for sharing your wisdom, your experience, for your vulnerability, for your honesty. We really, really do appreciate it. So with that, I open it up to all of you to join us either via chat or come off mute or on camera and ask us more questions.
Hi, I'm going to ask a question about the ERG and actually budgeting for it, because that's where I'm having some issues. I work for a manufacturer and we have a group called EPIC, and it's for people of color. Believe it or not, we don't even have a lot of Black people within my company, and it's a very large company to like just have some Black folks together. So we've opened it up. And now we're looking to say, hey, we got a budget, and we're all remote. Not we're all remote, we're all in different locations. So it's from across the country. I had asked to put in the budget for all of us to get together, and it's not a lot. It's like 15 to 18 people. And they said no, budget wise, which I'm okay with. But is there, and I wanted to then go back with a budget for speakers, and I have a couple in mind and I know theirs, but I just don't want to be one and done. So what is, like, how can I position the ROI out and get a decent amount of money to have this, whether it's continuing ed, whether it's this conversation has been amazing for me, but be able to get that to my hires up why we need a budget for our ERG.
I would offer a few things, Libby. And also feel free to connect with me after, and I can connect you to the folks on our team who do the budgeting and work with the budgeting. One thing that I would offer is to make the case that this is social and emotional support for employees, which then leads to retention, which then leads to having a diverse company, which we know drives profit. I hate that you have to make the business case for this, but I would start with a humanistic approach and interweave the fact that this will help us retain our racially marginalized talent, which will help us make better sense and make more money. That is where I think I would start is, and also another thing I would do, yes, I lost it and I remembered it. I would do a quick landscape of businesses. It's extra work for you, but look at other businesses that have your same size, possibly caliber, who also offer a budget for their ERGs, and make the business case of we are going to lag and be left behind if this is not something that we prioritize. And in the world of tech, the worst thing that you can do is become archaic. And so make that case of this company does this company does this is like, this is what they do and this is how they do it. And this is what I'm proposing we do, which at this point I've demonstrated that this is just the baseline of support for our employees. And that might help pad what should not even be an argument.
Yeah,
No,
thank you.
yeah.
I do have some clients, our clients, that I've said, this is what our clients are doing. So
Yeah.
I've got some of those examples, but I'm going to research a little more. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to enter my email in the chat so I can connect you to someone on our global team who knows way more about budgets than I do.
Is there anyone else on the call whose organization does have an ERG and they have allocated a budget for them? If so, if you don't mind raising your hand. Or if you're interested in proposing that and you're having some of the same challenges as Libby, I welcome all of you to share your contact information, and we can, work on a focus group together on how we can better support each other and share different ideas such as the ones that Spencer has brought forward.
Hey Chantel, it's Cheryl. Could I add something real briefly?
Absolutely.
I was on a call. Hi, everyone. I lead DE&I at Miller Knoll. I was actually ironically on a call yesterday with a group of chief diversity officers who were discussing this very topic. And they're sending out a spreadsheet with some of the best practices across their 10 organizations. I'm happy to share that with you, Chantel, if you want to share it with everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Cheryl. That's great. It's the power of did, right?
And Cheryl, I can't really speak to our ERG's budgets because I am not involved on that side. I have tried to get money from some of our ERGs for certain projects, and that hasn't necessarily worked out. I can only tell you about my own experience where I was trying to get a couple of projects off the ground and they wouldn't come back with funding, and I just pivoted. I'm pretty stubborn, so I pivoted and figured out a way that I could get an organization or another part of our group or our company, our corporate giving group. They have a much larger budget than we do. So I was like, hey, how about if you do a grant for this? And I was able to come at it from a different direction. And once you have one of those projects under your belt and you show the success from that, all of a sudden the other groups want to, oh, this is a really good thing. And they want to join in on it. So that's been my experience personally with like trying to get around not having a budget and then like figuring out how to do it. Everybody loves a success story and they want to be part of it. So, I just showed that we're willing to do the work. We need some funding for it. And then all of a sudden they were able to find money in the budget.
Like magic.
Yeah.
Chris asked in the chat, can you talk more about the role of leaders and representation? And I believe Kelly, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. I believe you mentioned that earlier in the discussion.
Yeah, I think it goes back to some of your initial comments, Chantel, about, less than 5% of creatives identifying as Black. It just, and growing up, a lot of the schools I went to, I was, I would be one of 3 Black kids in my cohort, in my grade. Even when I got up to art center, private art school, I think that there was one other Black student in my program, and after the first term, it was just me. So it feels very isolating, and it makes you feel uncomfortable in some situations, like you're just the only person in the room. And then when you don't see someone who looks like you in that leadership position, you're like, well, am I ever really going to get there? Because it doesn't look like someone who looks like me and has my same life experiences has been successful in this trajectory that I'm moving on. And so I've been thinking about my professional growth, and ideally I'd just like to stay an individual contributor and maybe move, staff designer, principal designer, and be more focused on my skills. But then when I think about not having someone to represent Black creatives in a leadership role, like director, like VP, like chief product officer, it makes me want to strive for that, just so I can show other Black creatives that this is actually possible for you, which I'm hopeful that it is. Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean that it can't happen. But if I had seen it, I think I would feel more optimistic and maybe more comfortable in striving for that.
Yeah, Kelly, I think I was at a conference earlier this year, and that makes me think of a line that I have taken up as a motto, lift as you climb. And I just really took that to heart. It's like, as you're trying, like you are the role model for someone else. And I honestly don't want to be their role model. I just want to figure my own stuff out, because honestly, I can't figure out what to do for myself. I don't want to tell somebody else how they should do it. That's all your own individual way of doing things. But that is part of that representation. It's like, whether you want to be or not, you are like a role model for those coming after you. So that whole lift as you climb thing, I think I'm going to put that on a shirt.
Yeah, I like that.
Because I'm really taking that to heart.
If you print a shirt, let me know. I would love to buy
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
I love this concept of Sankofa that we're kind of talking through. And one thing I want to highlight that you just mentioned was you don't necessarily want to be that person. A lot of it comes with a lot of self-sacrifice, which is never fun. It's never pretty. And I find myself in that position often. And one thing that I started adopting that is really liberating for me, and also liberating for a lot of people around me, is bringing kind of that sentiment to the stage with me, right? So like that sentiment of like, I'm still figuring out my own stuff. Like when I carry that with me, not only does it liberate me to just be like a regular human, but it also tends to open the doors for people around me. And for example, Black women around me who have always had to be perfect just to get, some a bare minimum opportunity. What I find is that when I'm really transparent, when I'm authentic about like failures, things like that, I'm still going to be on the stage, and I've kind of accepted that I'm doing this for community, for like people like me. But when I approach it with authenticity and transparency, it really changes the game, which it seems like that's something you're doing as well. And I love to see it. But for anyone who might be struggling with that sentiment of like, I feel like I need to, I feel like I'm being called to, I don't necessarily want to, but like, I know what this will mean for generations to come. Still be you. That's exactly what is needed anyway. So be you however you need, carry whatever you need to carry into this work and into the spaces that you show up in. We talked a little bit about imposter syndrome, Chantel, and just remember, like, if you're ever feeling like an imposter in any way, that's not to say you need to work on your self-confidence. A lot of times imposter syndrome is a reaction to being in spaces and navigating systems that weren't created for you to exist within, let alone survive within, let alone thrive within. And so just be mindful of all of that and bring all of you, because that is usually what changes the game in any game. I'm off my soapbox.
No, it was beautiful. And I think that's the experience of a lot of Black talent at work, right? We always have that sense of responsibility, not that anyone is asking us, but if you're the only person in the room, that you have to show up not only for yourself, but to create space for those that come after you. So for our allies in the call, just, that human element, that, being human centric, and knowing that if there is a Black colleague in a room, just know that there's so much more than them being a designer or an employee at your organization, that they're also thinking about the community at work as well. So thank you, all of you, for sharing. We only have about 7 minutes left. So I would love to open it for at least one more question, or even just a shared experience. Or if you are doing something great and amazing in your organization, please feel free to share. We're all here to learn and grow together. Oh, and there's one in the chat. I have a question about hiring for potential versus technical skill, if there's time. Oh, Jenny. Oh, hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Hi,
It's nice to see you again. Thank you for having us. So my question is about our hiring process. So I think my organization, L&R, is definitely really interested in accommodating people who have a lot of potential, who might have diverse educational backgrounds, things like that. But our current talent process involves skimming design portfolios pretty quickly, frankly, to like keep up with the number of them that we receive. And I wonder if sometimes as a byproduct of that process could be missing people who have a lot of potential because they may not have that super polished design school portfolio. And I think that you could see that extra potential sometimes if that person reaches the interview phase, but if they never do, then it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I wonder if there are any like signs or signals that you look for in people's portfolios outside of just their work that can signal that type of potential.
I think something I look for is there are like a couple of ways that people can do this, but just like signals to the type of person that someone is. So if they seem like someone who would match a person who will do well at a place like Adobe, like if the way that they share themselves online or the way that they reflect who they are digitally, like I think that really reflects a person, how you present yourself online, regardless of the experience and quality of your work. So that could be the way that they pitch themselves, the bio that they write. A lot of people will tag their other interests, like a photography, like a Visco page or a YouTube channel or whatever. If you can see that, okay, this person is obviously passionate about creativity and Adobe's mission is creativity for all, that sounds like someone who could be a match to work at this company. So I think it's really about the way that people pitch themselves and the way that they present themselves outside of their work that is valuable and something good to look for.
Yeah, thank you. I think sometimes when we look at portfolios, we'll skim work, and sometimes like we don't even make it to like an about page or something like that. And maybe we could give that more weight.
Also, Anita mentioned earlier about what did you call it? The early sketches?
The dirty sketches,
dirty
yeah,
sketches.
like just showing that progression through. Because when you see those initial sketches and then the final piece, you kind of understand like the design methodology that you go through, what your thinking process is, and that gives us a little bit of background about who that person is. Our interview or not even the interview process, the application process that we go through, like Kelly was saying, ours is quite similar, and she kind of stole my answer. So, but yeah, we look at not just the portfolio, but try to dig down into what's behind them or in their about section or in their resume, if they've got like some groups that they're affiliated with as far as extracurricular type things, or, you know, just a little bit more than just the work. You can start to get a little more of a sense of who that person is and whether they'd be a good fit.
Yeah, Peter put hire the whole person, not the portfolio. So
Oh,
yeah,
I love that. Love that.
Rearranging your hiring practice. I know skimming through portfolios may be quicker, easier, more efficient, but to your point, how are you missing out on that potential amazing talent, right? That amazing human on the other side of that portfolio. And also portfolios are subjective. So, you know, dirty pages or sketches may be great sketches for someone else. So, you know, I would say I agree with Peter, hire that whole person. And maybe that STAR method interview is the first interaction and that portfolio review comes later. Awesome, great questions. Love the engagement. We're just at time. Thank you all. Thank you for our panelists. Thank you, did network, did members. Again, this is recorded. We will share this out on our Slack channel. It will be posted on our website and our YouTube channel. Please share this across your peers internally. And if you have any questions, we didn't touch all of it. We can have this conversation for weeks. There's so much more to unfold here. Please reach out to myself, Spencer, Oneita, or Kelly. You have your peers here on the call. Love that, you know, we're going to share resources from Miller Knoll to Tarquette and her team. We will pass that along to the Adobe team. It is the power of DID, the power of knowledge sharing, of learning and growing together. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your week. Happy holidays. Stay warm for those of you up in the northeast area. Watch out for the snow. And again, thank you guys all so much, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.